Welcome to this session in the round, as it were. I'm Bill Spindle. I'm the business editor of the national newspaper based in the UAE. And we're here to talk about the story of Dubai, which is one that's of great interest and relevance in the region. Dubai, as all of you know, has captured the imagination of the world in a way almost no city in the region has done in recent years. And in that kind of popular imagination, some would say perhaps a media-created imagination, the city has sort of risen meteorically in a matter of years out of the desert. And now, again, in that public imagination in some ways, some see it as having flown so high, it's now falling. I think we all know, certainly on this panel, and almost everyone in the room, that that's a far, far too simplistic view of where we are today with Dubai and in the region. And today, I'm hoping, and we're going to try to take a much more penetrating, much more longer-term view. I mean, we all know that Dubai didn't rise in just a few years from the desert, that in fact it's a result of decades of bold, really a series of bold, calculated investments, of vision and the ingenuity and determination to really bring that vision to life. And similarly, we know that the idea that somehow it's, quote, fallen is a much too simple way of looking at things. As Mark Twain, the other, said, the reports of my death have been much exaggerated. And I think that's certainly true in this case. So we're here to take a much longer view, a more penetrating view, ultimately, I hope, a more productive and interesting view of where Dubai is. We're going to look at at really a model that's been an envy of many in the region and of the world. And we're going to ask, I think, a little bit about how effectively, although it was a model, how effectively did that model gird the emirate for a global crisis that many people did not see coming at all? What's proved powerful and effective about that model going forward, and that should be taken from it? Is that model still an effective one, or one that needs modifying and extending in some way going forward in the current circumstances? And is it still a model that others can look at and can and should adopt and take something from as they go forward, both in the region and beyond? So we have a great panel to talk about that today. Starting from my left, we have Mark Fuller, chairman of the Monitor Group. We have Nasser H, who is the director of finance in Dubai and is involved in many of the top decisions that are being made and the plans that are being made to deal with the challenges right now. We have Mr. Péan, who is the chairman of Bain and Company here in the region. And we have Sheikh Khaled bin Zayed al Nehayan, who is the chairman of the bin Zayed Group, which is involved in finance, technology, and what was the other one? Trade. And trade, both in the UAE and beyond. Very active in the Dubai community. So we'll start out from there. I'll throw it open to questions fairly early in the process, so get your questions ready, and we'll kind of take it from there. I'd like to start with Mr. Al-Sheikh. Tell us a little bit about that first question. To what extent do you feel the model worked and girded Dubai for the current crisis? And to what extent do you think it needs to be modified? And what is the plan going forward as you look at it?
I think I'll need 5 hours to answer that.
You get 3 minutes or 4, but you'll have more after that.
But if I may comment on something that you said in the introduction, I mean, Dubai has risen and fallen. I tend to disagree with that. I think the whole globe has fallen out of as a result of the global financial crisis. If we look at the Dubai experience, of course, for more than a decade, we've been witnessing huge growth, double-digit growth year on year, on whatever indicator you look at, whether it's the growth in GDP, population, or you drill down to certain sectors. No doubt, no doubt. I mean, today we live in a different world. When we started feeling the effects of the global financial crisis back in summer '08, or towards the end of summer, we thought that the effect will be limited. However, I think the whole world took a completely different turn after the collapse of Lehman. That highlighted how serious the challenges that we as a world face, how serious the challenges are. In Dubai, of course, I mean, the effects are there, but when we look at the fundamentals that have fueled the growth of Dubai over the past decades, they have not changed. We have always been blessed with great leadership. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed still remains to be our leader. We always promoted Dubai as being at the crossroads of the East and West. We still are in the same geographical location. We're a part of a greater community. If you look at the GCC, 40 million people, a lot of youth, an economy size of $1 trillion, which grew threefold in 5 years. That did not change. We're still a part of the UAE, which is a member of the GCC. So I mean, the fundamentals did not change. However, the global climate changed. The growth in Dubai. I mean, if you look at our performance historically, I mean, for many years, we've always been an open economy. We still think this is the right strategy. Being open to the world, of course, I mean, we will be affected by what happens in the world. So I think, I'll leave it there, not to take more time.
Sheikh Khaled, do you want to pick up on any of that, particularly the private sector challenges ahead?
Well, to start with, I think it's very important to understand that Dubai have been in the front running for the whole region. So if you are a front runner, most probably you will face hurdles before anybody else. And that's what have happened. Today, not only Dubai is facing these hurdles, I think the whole, let's say, the GCC is facing similar hurdles. So we were really signing the signals for everybody else that there is hurdles coming down the road. That's one. The second, I think, which is also very important in this discussion that we have to focus on, while we have to recognize that there are issues and some mistakes that have been created because of the euphoria that was fueling the whole region, let alone the whole world. I think what have been created during this process is really a fantastic platform for business to be conducted for the future. When you look at all the infrastructure that have been built during the past 10 years, you can only think that Dubai would benefit from this infrastructure after this crisis. And not only Dubai, I think the UAE, the region, and everybody else, because at the end of the day, you need a hub to transact, to do business, to create value. And that's the beauty of Dubai. Dubai can always have been the innovator, the pioneer, and have been adding a lot of value for its economy as well as for the whole region. So with all of this together, I think one should look at the half full glass, not the half empty.
If first Mr. Péan and then and Mr. Fuller could give us some international context to think about all this. I mean, clearly, what's happening in Dubai is clearly not happening in a vacuum. Many similar things are happening in many other places around the world. So while it's a unique situation, it's clearly one that has an international context. Talk about that if you guys could.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I think Nasser has said that what's happening today is a global crisis. And what Sheikh Khaled has said, which is absolutely true as well, is that if you're a front runner, and being a front runner means that in the case of Dubai being leveraged, it means that you're hitting, the crisis is going to be felt a little bit more in this place than in other places. So I think, the crisis, if we look at it, it's applying worldwide. It's applying differently in the countries depending on what I would call the leverage of those countries. And then in the same way, it's applying differently to companies on the basis of the industry they're in and how much this industry is leveraged. So I think, again, what's happening to Dubai today has got to be put in the context of the global crisis. I would just rebound also on something that Sheikh Khaled has said, which I think is really at the heart of what Dubai is all about. Dubai is a hub for a region and has built an infrastructure which is second to none. And I've heard yesterday in one of the panels somebody say that, once the crisis is over, and I think it's going to be, we don't know what it's going to be, we don't know how long it's going to take, but Dubai will be there and will still be there with the best infrastructure of the region. And the region needs Dubai. I spend a lot of time in Saudi Arabia, I spend a lot of times in all the GCC countries. They all want Dubai to succeed.
Mark?
Well, I couldn't agree more that Dubai is not alone at this moment in terms of dealing with uncertainty and a somewhat murky future, at least in the short term. And I couldn't agree more that Dubai really has been a pioneer. And from the international perspective, it's been a pioneer. Now, of course, in the United States, we have a saying that the pioneer is the fellow with all the arrows in his back. And there really are hurdles for the front runner. I think it's important, particularly in the international context and the deserved place that Dubai has earned over the last 20 or 30 years as a hub and as a brand, that the baby not be thrown out with the bathwater. The fundamentals are there. What I'd add, though, is that even while the fundamentals are there, crises of the kind that the world is going through right now do require learning. And one thing that Dubai has been great about historically is innovation. And I think some of the success of Dubai has been directly related to its ability to innovate. I think in the short to medium term, though, the ability to institutionalize the success, to rebuild the trust that Dubai has earned over time, to create or attract the kind of human capital that's required to take Dubai to the next level. These are some of the learnings that I would urge from the success and the challenges to success that Dubai faces right now.
Nasser, one of the things that's, I think most people agree going forward is the world of credit is going to be quite a bit different, and Dubai made use of a lot of credit very advantageously to propel growth forward. How do you deal with a world going forward where that's not going to be as possible?
Your question is spot on. Looking at the growth over the past decade or so, I mean, many of the key players in our economy, GREs, as the rating agencies label them, government-rated agencies, entities. Many of them have been heavily reliant on the credit markets. Today, I think in Dubai, it is. I mean, whatever I say, I mean, will be biased about Dubai, but today, as a government, we realized this fact. We realized that credit markets will be tight for some of our key players in the economy, and this caused us, as a government, to go out and raise money and to roll out a $20 billion fund bond program with a target. I mean, the reason of rolling out this bond program is only to support the GREs within Dubai. Because today, globally, and this is not only Dubai, but globally, it's tough for corporates to raise money. Sovereigns have a much better chance of doing it. So, I mean, we did issue the first tranche, 10 billion US, and we started supporting the companies because we know this will not go away tomorrow or in a week or a month. I mean, it might take a year or two. And we're willing to raise more money as a sovereign to support the GREs going forward. However, I mean, coming back to the learnings, of course, I mean, when it comes to these corporates, we ensure that we ensure that there is a criteria that has to be met before we support these companies. The economic climate is completely different today. I mean, we really live in a different world. So one of the first things, I mean, if you're a business owner or you're leading a business, one of the first things that you do, you go back to your business model, and you ask yourself, I mean, is it still viable? And if it's viable, you know, what changes do I need to do to my business plan to ensure that my business is sustainable? Of course, I mean, as government, this is important to us because whatever money we raise, I mean, we have not to forget that this is borrowed money. In our case, it's 5 years. There is, you know, interest associated with it. So we need to ensure that the money is repaid. But I think throughout Dubai, if you look at the key players, they are going back to their business plans. They are making very tough business calls to ensure that they're still in business in the years to come.
Can you tell us a few details? I know you've talked a little bit about where that $20 billion is planned for. The first $10 billion, I know you've given a lot of consideration to, and I believe is flowing now. Yes. Give us just a little detail on where that's going and how those decisions are made.
Well, I mean, the way it works, I mean, administratively, I mean, the Department of Finance does the assessment. It receives the applications from the various corporates within Dubai, and does the assessment with the assistance of some advisors like Rothschilds, who we appointed, and some advisory consultants too. But when it comes to decision making, I mean, we take it up to a committee that the Department of Finance reports to, called the Supreme Fiscal Committee. It's a 5-member committee, and the decisions are made there. And unfortunately, I cannot go into the details of what is the criteria. But one of the most important things, I mean, when you look at the concept of PPP, public-private partnerships, I think Dubai has been built on this concept, many years ago, 50 years, 40 years ago. When you look at telecom, for example, it was started by the private sector in Dubai, maybe 40 years ago. When you look at the utilities, I mean, our electricity company was started by business people in Dubai. So, I mean, looking at the climate today, I mean, there are a number of companies, corporates, who are playing a very important roles in achieving Dubai's strategic objectives. Mm-hmm. So we have to ensure the well-being of these companies because we, as an emirate, I mean, their existence is important to us and us achieving our targets.
Mm-hmm. If I can, I'll ask one more question and then throw it open for some questions from the audience after this, or you guys can jump in. But one more thing to just get a little more on the informational side. We talked not long ago, we had an interview with you, and one of the things we talked about was the property industry. And one of the things we sort of asked, what's going on with it? And you're really responded with one word. You said it's maturing. And in many ways, I think that's what's happening to a lot of different industries in Dubai. And I wonder if you could talk about that just for a minute or two.
When we look at the property industry in Dubai, of course, I mean, property has been there forever, for thousands of years. But property market as it is today, it started in the year 2000 with the introduction of the freehold and leasehold and so on. And it really blossomed, a few years later. And the market has been growing so fast. We had hundreds of developers, real estate developers in Dubai. And I think our legislative system, or the regulator who's regulating this industry in Dubai, has not been coping up with the same speed. It does not make sense to for government in year 2000 to establish a regulator regulating an industry which is not there. So in due course, I mean, the market was created. It attracted a lot of interest, a lot of investment from abroad, and a few years ago, a regulator was established in Dubai to regulate the property industry. There are many questions. I mean, there are many questions to be answered by the introduction of new laws and so on. And I think the regulator is doing it. When it comes to developers, I think we're witnessing a transformation. Developers used to build, sell, and so on, and now they are forced, because of the new market dynamics, they are forced to become asset managers instead of sellers, because the market, again, globally, Give me a single real estate market which is still doing well, and I will go invest there. I mean, there is none. So this is a global phenomena. I don't think it will go away in a year. But even developers, I mean, not only the property market itself, but even developers are maturing in their thinking too.
Right. Any point you guys want to make real quickly before are there questions out there that people have now? Sheikh Khaled?
If I may add, one thing I think it's very important when we talk about the story of Dubai is that we have to emphasize the innovation that Dubai continued to pioneer all along during the past, let's say, 10 years, and especially the last 5 years. The other thing which is very important, which will help Dubai in this circumstance, is flexibility. And that's very important. We live in a very dynamic environment. And Dubai have always demonstrated that it's flexible, innovative, and pioneer in developing itself into a new era that is required, which really emphasized what is the business model. Today, I think this stress test have taken us back to think how should we evolve into the 2010 and going forward. Looking back into our really competitive advantage that Dubai, the UAE, and the GCC should be focusing on. While we thought that we should go along on all those fronts that we felt comfortable with in 2007, 2008, today, even us as a business entity, we are looking where should we reallocate slightly, readjust our plans, because that's what any business plan should be all about. Similarly, the government, similarly, the economy should be thinking about how to evolve into this new reality that is happening today. So I think it's very important to benefit from those lessons that have been tested today, to focus on what is really advantageous for and can put us in a very competitive position going forward.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel like, go ahead.
I'd like to make a parallel between Dubai and a large conglomerate. You know, the first time I visited the executive office, I was told 3 things. The first one is we call ourselves Dubai Inc. The second one was what's good for business is good for Dubai. And the third one was supply drives demand. We call ourselves Dubai Inc. I think it's just a question, as you're saying, of adapting the strategy to the new environment. There's been a strategy of grow, 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 because there was nothing, and you had a first entry advantage. You've established the infrastructure. Now it's going to be still grow, but manage, and manage what you have more efficiently, give better deals to the companies that are in Dubai, better rates, better service. The second one is what's good for business is good for Dubai. I think it's not only what's good for business, it's good for the people who work in those businesses, be they Emirati or foreigners. I think it's very important that you keep a population in Dubai that wants to stay in Dubai, wants to develop in Dubai, wants to participate to the development of Dubai for the long term, and those might be foreigners as well as Emiratis. The third one is supply drives demand, and I think we go here at the heart of what Dubai is all about, this bold vision of Dubai. You know, I was shocked when I heard that, because it was against all the textbooks that I'd read before, which is, you know, you do a great analysis of the demand, great segmentation, and then you deliver to the people what they're asking for. But Dubai delivered something that people had not even a vision that it could exist. So that is what Dubai has created. It's created from a dream, it's created something that is absolutely fantastic in the region. That supply drives demand. There's enough supply of building. There's enough supply of infrastructure to some extent. I think for me, the next generation of supply drives demand is going to be the supply of service, the supply of quality. You know, in the service industry, there's still an awful lot to be done. Healthcare, education, even telecom. Plenty of services need to be improved in Dubai. If Dubai wants to stay the first infrastructure hub of the region, and be on the par of the best cities of the world, now, after having built the infrastructure, having the brick and mortar, it goes into the service.
I can just lean into a couple of things that have been said. It's also in terms of supply drives demand. the supply of human capital and specialized human capital. In the early days of pioneering, the level of skill was high in terms of entrepreneurship and what have you. Now that Dubai has become as big and as developed as it is, different kinds of skills are going to be required. When you have a limited amount of money, you don't need financial management skills. When you have a lot of money, you need financial management skills. So I think the supply of human capital, whether a national or expat, very, very, very important thing. And the other thing is it's been mentioned several times today, and I certainly subscribe to it, the notion that Dubai is innovative and that it is flexible. And of course, one of the things that is true, if you're genuinely innovative and genuinely entrepreneurial, for example, is not all innovations succeed and not all entrepreneurial companies survive. And this is a time for some revisiting and focusing and institutionalization again behind the successes and perhaps withdrawal from those that are less successful. Dubai Inc. will continue to be successful, but not all pieces necessarily.
Other questions out there? I would urge people to ask succinct questions, or if you have a statement you'd like to make, make it, but please keep it very succinct, and we'll try to get a bit of repartee. Why don't we take a question right here?
I agree with Sheikh Khaled. First of all, I'm Hanadi Al-Thani from Qatar. I agree with Sheikh Khaled. Dubai has been in the forefront of innovation within the Gulf, and we are all looking at Dubai and facing the challenges, so we know what challenges we will face. Dubai has taken the model of these large quasi-government companies to take development forward, and it has always been more biased, you know, a more favorable terms towards these entities. We see now that the business models are changing and it's becoming a more competitive ground for everyone. How do you see that happening within Dubai, so the sustainability of this model? And I think this will be reflected on the rest of the Gulf.
You want
she's
we'll ask
with you.
We'll ask you both to comment in any case. So.
Well, it's a tough question. I don't have the full answer for it today. I mean, it's work in progress. I think, as I said, I mean, companies are revisiting their business plans. They're re-examining their business models. The existence of these corporates is very important to us, and you know, as a government of Dubai, because as I said, I mean, there are a number of corporates who play a strategic or a very important role in Dubai achieving its strategic objectives. Dubai cannot live without Emirates Airlines. Dubai cannot live without the IFC. Dubai cannot live with some components of Dubai Holding, Dubai World, and so on. Of course, I mean, not every single business venture they have went and started over the past years will remain to be there. I mean, as you said, I mean, when you're innovative, you try 10 things, 5 things, 6 things might work, and this is what you keep, and you go back and you try to be innovative and coming up with new ideas and new initiatives and so on. But coming back to innovation, I think historically, in the good times, yes, I mean, you find innovation, but in the more challenging times, you even find more innovation. If I look at the U.S. experience, what got the U.S. out of its Great Depression or the recession in the 90s, it was innovation, coming up with the internet boom and so on. For us in Dubai, I mean, we've, over the past 40, 50 years, with the grace of God, I mean, we've been always able to reinvent ourselves, to accommodate ourselves to the new environment, and to see opportunities. Supply drives demand. I mean, we always believe that opportunities only come to those who are prepared. So we have to be prepared for it. It's for us, I mean, we see it, we look at it constructively. You cannot look at such an experience positively because, it came down hard on a number of people and corporates, but we look at it constructively. For many years, we've been running at neck-breaking speed, where a number of things were not so important. You say, okay, I'll look at them later. But today, we have the luxury of revisiting what we have done in the past, continue doing what we did well, and fine-tune where we have not been very successful.
Well, I didn't want to jump on the answering the question from Sheikh Hanadi because she asked about some corporates which the government can answer very well. But one thing which is very beautiful about Dubai is that the government is not stubborn about any issue. And that's the beauty about the whole issue here, is that even we in the private sector, we love it. We are always in interaction with the government, suggesting things, finding out from them what they are thinking about, what is going to be the next evolution, all of this. This is the beauty of Dubai. It's innovation, listening, ability to work with the private sector, not like other places where we are the government, we'll tell you what to do. No, Dubai have always been based on interaction with all the stakeholders and listening to them and understanding what are the issues. That's why I think it's going to be, I think you should look at Dubai 201. It is going to be a new phase. It's going to be, I think, more beautiful than what you have seen in the past because they listen. They listen to the business community, they listen to all the stakeholders, and they incorporate it into their business plan. And that's the beauty. That's why we in the business community are happy with what happened, because we know that phase 2.0 is going to be even better than 1.0.
I can't agree more. I think it's going to be a sign of leadership of Dubai, which, by the way, has been really fantastic in the last 15 years. Having worked with, it's going to be a sign of leadership to reinvent itself and apply the leadership differently to this phase 2. And I think, as I said before, it's not going to be anymore grow, 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 but it's going to be grow sustainably and quality of that growth. And I think that is the challenge of the reinvention of the leadership. But that's no different from all the big conglomerates that we have, strategy consultants we're working with. They have those periods of growth during which you focus completely on growth. And then there is a time where, because of external circumstances, you've got to reassess your business model. You cannot throw away what you have done, but you have to add something. And that sustainability and apply your innovation, your innovative capability to your inner workings rather than necessarily to the outside. So I think it's Dubai 2.0 is a formula which I really like, and I really think that that's absolutely critical. If Dubai leadership manages to rethink, take stock of what they have built, which is enormous, and apply those new developments, this innovation, to a few areas which are going to support what they have built and get into new fields of services and quality, I think it's Dubai is there for forever.
I'll work my way, I guess, this way around the room to be fair and not to miss these people back here. So we'll take a question over here. Why don't we go with this gentleman here?
And you've got one just behind you.
I'll go. I'll work my way around the room this way. I promise not to neglect you all.
Hello, I'm Cyril Fabre. I'm a resident in Dubai and certainly one who is quite committed to help the community. My question is the following. Yesterday we heard in many workshops that in this deleverage economy we have to focus on the core. Companies have to focus on the core. And we heard about the same thing today. My question is, which industries do you think should Dubai focus on? Or which capabilities should Dubai focus on to lead the Dubai 2.0?
Yeah, I think that's also the question of sort of, do you need to, in a sense, consolidate the current array of industries that make up Dubai Inc., or do you feel that you have to try to develop new ones? How do you approach that?
I mean, I think the companies themselves will be the best people to answer this question. But if you look at the reality, again, if I'm heading a company, I will make the whatever calls need to be made. If I look at the corporates in Dubai, I think a number of them already embarked on a consolidation exercise. If I look at just examples, I mean, Dubai Holding, and this is all public information, Dubai Holding already consolidated their investments business in one entity where they had two arms. Dubai Holding used to have 3 property development arms, and today they consolidated all the back office operations of these arms. It's not a luxury, it's a business necessity to to make these decisions to ensure that your business model is still sustainable. I think, you know, I mean, of course, I mean, we're at the Department of Finance, we're in continuous dialogue with most corporates in Dubai for the past 6 months or so, and we're we have been exposed to their plans. Some of them already started their executing their plans, and some others are in the final stages of finalizing their plans and will go into the execution mode soon.
You want to say more? Back here.
Hi, I'm Aman Merchant from Dubai. I've been brought up in Dubai, and I guess if I look back to what's the story from Dubai, in the last 6 to 9 months, we heard stories from Dubai where it said Dubai denies the global crisis. 3 months back, we heard things about Dubai defies the global crisis, and now we're hearing talk about Dubai surviving the global crisis. I guess the underlying theme in both these remarks is what's Dubai doing about communication and transparency, which are the things that have been missing in the past. And I don't want to say I'm going to direct this to Nasser or Sheikh Khaled. I'll leave it open to your group to decide how best to address it. Thank you.
I mean, the attendees are tougher than reporters.
Well, let me. Well, maybe I mean, you guys.
No,
could,
I
go
think
ahead.
I'll just make a comment and,
Sure.
and leave it to the to the panel. I think a lot of work has been done. We've been accused in the media of living a state of denial, which I completely disagree with. I remember we in government started looking at the effects of the global credit crisis towards end of summer, early Ramadan, which is October. However, we thought back then we thought the effects will be limited, but let's be clear. I mean, after the collapse of Lehman, it really that incident really redefined the state that we live in, and all of a sudden the effect became more apparent, and you can see it with your own eyes. On the communication part, I think a lot of work has been done. Maybe we were not as fast in communicating it to the public, and historically we never communicated anything. I mean, we were busy doing our business, and the media machine was covering the success of Dubai. All of a sudden, we're faced with the reality that yes, we are still doing what needs to be done, but I think we have to do a better job communicating it, and hence, I mean, this is the reason I am here today.
How important, you guys have talked about the next generation of Dubai in a sense. How important are these issues to that next generation working and working right? Issues of transparency, corporate governance, that sort of thing.
I would agree to some extent with the question on one part of it, that also you don't want people just to communicate for the sake of communication. Unless you have plan, unless you have ideas, unless you have real, genuine information, you don't want just to bluff people with information that's not true. So maybe part of that lack of communication, or it's less than what is expected, is that there was so many issues happening at the same time that you need to address. So you cannot just expect people in a very tough situation to just go and communicate anything. They need to communicate seriously about what is happening. And that's maybe why some of the communication have been delayed. There is not much of communication because you need to build also and scale up the infrastructure for that sort of communication. And also you want that communication to be right and just, so that you as a business community make the right decision. The last thing you want is to communicate something wrong, or something that is not going to be beneficial for creating the right environment. We are still, by the way, in the midst of the crisis. Don't be really, don't think that because just the markets came up 20% or 30% in some in the stock exchange that we are out of it. On the contrary, we are still in the midst of the financial crisis. We just have seen the first phase of it on the financial services. Still, the real economy is an issue. We need to see through that for the next at least 1 year. So, and I'm not just talking about the UAE here, I'm talking globally. We are already starting seeing the results in the global market on the real economy, whether it's technology, whether it's automobile, whether it's retail. All of those are being hit seriously, and now we are seeing the real effect of this crisis. Therefore, I think we don't need to rush to just communicate anything. What is most important is that, as I said earlier, that Dubai is based on participation, and the government have done in the past, at least we in the business community have participated in dialogue about discussions on different levels through the Chamber of Commerce, through the Dubai Economic Council, through the DIFC. So many entities have created that dialogue with the government to understand how to move things forward, where we take into consideration the interests of all the stakeholders in the community.
I think it's going to be part of Dubai 2.0 to engage into more communication and more transparency. I think, again, we have been, Dubai 1.0 has been a period of growth, a period of incredible success. And again, as a parallel with private companies or big conglomerates, I don't see a single big conglomerate that has created a capability to talk about a crisis before the crisis happened. So how can you talk about something that you have no way of measuring, of understanding, in addition to which, how can you expect a state to talk about the strategy of companies that live in a competitive market? So I think I understand. I understand the frustration of not having seen more transparency. I understand, and I think it's more a question of, late communication, a little bit late communication, because, first, the depth of the crisis was not fully understood, and second, the implication of the crisis on Dubai took time to materialize or to understand. And I think you have to have a process of communicating about bad things, or things that felt bad, in the same way as you have a process to communicate about good things. These are not the same companies that, by the way, do a media campaign for Dubai and do a PR campaign for Dubai. So I think that's, it's going to be part of this, of this phase 2 of Dubai to start communicating more.
Yes. How about a question from over here? Why don't we take the one in the yellow there?
Hi, my name is Christy Lee. I'm from Uri Investment Korea. Actually, I'm very new to the region. I spent most of my adult life between US and Korea, and I've been coming to the region only for 6 months now, so I'm very new. And one of the things that I've noticed since I've been coming here was that I was very impressed by the ability of Dubai effectively communicating to the rest of the world about its vision and the innovation. And Korea was sending very senior delegation, a group of ministers, prime ministers, deputy prime ministers, to learn the lessons, how Dubai quickly evolved out of the desert. And since last fall, what I've been hearing in Korea is, let's not learn from Dubai anymore. And I've been trying to figure out, is it really true that we have to stop learning from Dubai? And I really don't think so. I still believe that the ability to communicate its vision and its strategy to move forward and innovate is really something that the Asian countries should learn. And I've been seeking some answers from the people that I've been meeting in the region, and the only answer that I've been getting was, oh, don't worry about Dubai, Abu Dhabi will help. But besides that answer, I didn't really get any medium-term or long-term strategy where Dubai is coming after the crisis, where it's leading, where is the vision. So I hope to see more strategic, longer-term vision coming out of the Dubai, so the rest of the world could understand where it's going. And the second point I want to make is I've been trying to encourage the people that I met in the region to visit East Asia because there's a lot of room to collaborate because East Asian countries do have access of human capital, very well trained, well disciplined, hard-working capital, human resources that this region needs. So I've been encouraging people, why don't you visit Korea, Japan? I think there's a lot we could collaborate, and many people told me, oh, this is too far.
You have a question you want to ask at the end of that? Or
I'm just wondering whether you have any plan to enhance collaboration with East Asian countries, because I think a lot more could be done going forward. Thank you.
Well, when I travel and start to read about Dubai in the foreign media, and and go back to Dubai, I sometimes question: is Dubai airport still there or not? I mean, talking about the importance, I think, of the East. If there is one thing to be said about the East, I think this global financial crisis has highlighted the importance of the East. Countries like like South Korea, like China, and I mean the whole region, and we see an importance, a very important role for them to play in bailing out the global economy. To be frank with you, it's not about collaboration with the GCC only. In Dubai, I mean we do have great relationships there, and we're in continuous dialogue with them on a number of things in a number of countries, including South Korea. But I think it's still work in progress. I mean, let's not forget that in Dubai we believe that the worst is over for us. It does not mean we're already in the recovery stage, but I mean the natural process is you're affected by by whatever it is. For us, it's the global financial crisis. Then you go into a stabilization mode, and then you go into the recovery stage. I think we're in this stabilization mode. Strategies, our long-term objectives. I come back to the fundamentals of Dubai, which have not changed. Our long-term view has not changed. Of course, it has to be fine-tuned to incorporate the new realities. But at the same time, we as government, I mean, there's no more pressure on government to come up with short-term solutions for a number of issues that we think are only temporary until the global economy recovers.
You guys want to jump off there?
I can't resist saying something which is not actually responsive to the question, but if you liked the idea of learning from Dubai when it was an unequivocal success, or at least presented as one, you should like the idea of learning from Dubai now even more, because I think the science says that human beings learn much more effectively from setbacks and failures than from successes. So what Dubai is going to be learning as it surmounts these challenges in the next little while might be truly valuable to pay attention to.
I hope this session will happen, a year ago or 2 years from now, because I think here we are in the middle of this transformation of addressing the crisis. And as Mark said, I think it would be very interesting, and I'm very confident with the leadership of Dubai and the ability to innovate, that in 1 year or 2 years from now, we would have a Dubai 2.0, which will be built on the same core competencies that Dubai has, the hub between East and West, and then all the things around the concept of hub, but which has brought something new to it, which is sustainability, measured growth, quality, and I think that would be the good answer. So let's hope everybody learns from this experience.
Let's go over here now. How about right there?
Hi everybody, I'm Ibrahim Muthanna, one of the youth delegation. I have no doubt that Dubai is a success story, but my question is, if we want to keep this story sustained, what reformation do we need to impose? We're still in the middle of the mist, and what kind of reformation, what kind of insight do we need to transmit or to transfer into Dubai 2.0? Thank you.
I think what's very important is to look back at the principles that Dubai had been based on. And those are, what is our competitive advantage? What do we do well? What do we do bad? Where should we position ourselves? And that's the beauty here. Dubai always have been focused on how to create value, how to add value to its community in the region, beyond the region, and now it's looking globally. As long as Dubai will continue to pursue this avenue, it's going to be successful. The minute it divert from this and just think that I'm going to do this, whatever that strategy is, no matter what the environment is, then there's going to be failure. But as I said, Dubai is always built on participation. All the way from 50 years ago when Sheikh Rashid was there, developing the port, the creek, and all of these things, we don't go to the history, to Sheikh Mohammed today, where he is implementing the same thing. So as long as your principles are right, you are thinking about your capabilities, how can you add value, you are going to be successful. As long as you are not stubborn and willing to learn and willing to adjust and willing to change, you will be successful. People fail when they stop learning. And the beauty of Dubai, as I said before, is that it continues to evolve. And that's why we in the business community, we like it, because we are participating and we are seeing the changes and we are seeing the first elements of Dubai 2.0 coming up, which means that there is going to be huge opportunities. Always with evolution, always with change, there is going to be opportunities. And that's what you should look for. This will create a different status quo, which will allow more participants to benefit from this evolution. And therefore, it will continue to be on the move to develop a newer framework for people to participate and do business.
Take a question here.
I think listening to
please tell who you are. And
Jamal Al-Kishi from Saudi Arabia.
Thank you.
I think listening to the cacophony in the media about what's going on in Dubai, a lot of people, especially naive listeners, would conclude that Dubai has failed. That is not true. Dubai did not fail. There was a crisis instigated elsewhere, gripped the entire world. Credit markets melted down, and as a result, a lot of projects and initiatives financed in Dubai and in the world at large have suffered. That is what we have. Dubai has been a resounding success, and frankly, if I can put it in different terms, has been a beacon of hope for millions and millions in the region. Not just in the Arab world, but in the entire region. I mean, what happened in Dubai is not single projects failing. Dubai was investing in a bold, ambitious fashion. To fuel that investment, the state and the entities within the state had to rely on credit markets. Everybody in the world did the same, more or less, to varying degrees. Credit markets collapsed. Does that mean that the decision to invest and to move forward and to be bold and ambitious and provide what you provide in a region that is deprived of so many things, was that wrong? Was that a failure? The answer, in my view, is a resounding no.
Anybody want to continue on that?
I only thank him for his comments.
But I think the gentleman echoes what I hear in all the countries in the GCC. People want Dubai to succeed, even though they want to compete with Dubai. And that's something that in Dubai 2.2 will have to be brought, which is the regional competition. You know, when Dubai created, I remember the first time I went to Dubai was in 93, 94. And I met some of the business leaders then in Dubai. And it was extremely exciting. They had a vision. Sheikh Rashid and Sheikh Mohammed had transmitted this vision. And it was at that time only a vision. Sheikh Zayed Road at the World Trade Center, and that was it. There was a Crown Plaza on the right-hand side of Sheikh Zayed Road, and then nothing up to the Emirates Golf Club. That was a vision. The region didn't have anything to match. And I think today, Qatar's developed tremendously. Bahrain is back on the development spree. Saudi Arabia is making enormous stride. I think Dubai has showed the way for the Arab world to demonstrate that they can be as successful as those big successes that we've seen first in Europe and then we've seen in Asia. And everybody is embarking on that development, which means that I'm coming back to the point that Sheikh Khaled was making. It's going to be very important for Dubai to go back to the fundamentals of what makes Dubai different. And Dubai should not be trying to do everything, which was a little bit the tendency of the last few years, like getting into industry where they have nothing to do. They have no competitive advantage in industry. They should be the hub between the East and the West, with everything that it means: transportation, logistics, healthcare, education, all those things that you need in a hub. A perfect environment for international companies to work with good conditions of living and good quality of infrastructure and low cost. I think low cost was forgotten a little bit. Now it's better because the rates have gone down. But this is it. I think Dubai needs the 2.2 needs to be put in the context of a region that has benefited from Dubai, but is creating an internal competition, hence the need to really define how Dubai is different from the rest of the region while supporting it.
Back here and again. Why don't we go right here?
Thank you very much. My name is Farid Mohammed Ahmed. I'm the Secretary General of Dubai World. I just want to say that if you look back about 200 years ago, people from Europe flocked into United States because of a thought, not because United States was a country, because of a thought of prosperity. It was the gold rush. People from all over the world went to United States because of a thought of becoming better in their lifestyles, in what they get for their children. And therefore, the Chinese who went there, they are still Chinese. The Italians who went there are still Italians. The Irish who went there are still Irish. But they're all Americans in their thought of prosperity. Today, and about 10 years ago, Dubai had become that thought of prosperity. A little earlier than that, about, let's say, 30 years ago, people started coming to Dubai with the thought of prosperity to come and work and make money, repatriate that money back to their home countries, particularly the Asians and from the Middle East, other territories. About 5-10 years back, those who actually have money started coming to Dubai with the same thought of prosperity to invest, because they believe that investment in Dubai will bring them prosperity. So it is not because of the people of Dubai, it is not because of the government of Dubai or the entities of Dubai, it is because of the people from the rest of the world who believe in Dubai, that Dubai shall continue and rise again with that thought of prosperity. Thank you very much.
And if I take my government hat off and go back to a statement that the Saudi gentleman just made, talking about the beacon of hope. If you look at what happened in Dubai, I think it's a celebration of what more than 200 nationalities can do, fueled by regional money, and all what we did, or all what Dubai did, is that Dubai had visionary leadership to provide the right environment for that to happen. And this is why, to be frank with you, I mean, other than what you read in the media and so on, I mean, we have really great interest from the wider region that, I mean, for things to work for us in Dubai. You know, even if you look at the questions that come from people from Dubai, you know, you see different nationalities, and this is, you know, one of our competitive advantages there.
No. Why don't we go right there then?
Roland Schatz from Zurich. The open question from my point of view is for Dubai, are you Las Vegas or New York? And this question is still open. And if we think about that, communication or non-communication can be the answer, you are exactly describing the problem for those who don't live in the region. The question is really, is the airport still existing? And therefore you need to not only find the answer to this question, but you need to have an ongoing communication flow, like any other company. Companies in crisis, they can't come to the conclusion, we don't know, therefore we no longer communicate. This is not a position.
Good.
Well, I have to say that we are Dubai. We are not New York, not Las Vegas, not Berlin, not Zurich, and we'll continue to be Dubai, UAE, GCC, Arab, Muslim country at the end of the day. That's our beauty. And I think people have to look at this beauty. And I would come back again to this word, beauty. Dubai is a very beautiful place when you think about it in this context. When you think about its flexibility, its participation, the examples that we are building in Dubai today, and that's why I'm proud to be part of all of this. And not because it's Dubai, it's because it's UAE also. And sometimes we are missing a lot. The discussions that sometimes Abu Dhabi will bail Dubai and all of this nonsense have been finished by the Sheikh statement clearly. We have to understand who we are. Dubai is a UAE city and state that will continue to be within the GCC context, that evolved from this wealth of being in that region, that have this diversity, that add this beauty to the globe, where it's trying to build a place for people to transact in a new format. And that new format is benefiting a lot of people. Firstly, it's benefiting its local community, but even around its region. So many people have benefited from what I'd like to call it now UAE also, because Dubai is in sync with the UAE also regulation, and that's something important we shouldn't miss. And we are part of a much even a greater area of GCC that we shouldn't forget in the meantime. We are, I don't think, at least what I see from the government, is not trying to emulate Las Vegas, New York, or London, or anywhere. We are trying to build Dubai, UAE, and a newer version of the Gulf states, who will now taking more role in the global agenda.
Nasser, that does bring up this federal issue, which is interesting because it is so often the Dubai is talked about in a kind of local context and in an international context, but clearly all of this is playing out in a federal context as well. This is a country that's growing. Dubai is clearly a part of it. Talk for a minute about the federal role that you see in fitting into all this.
Well, I think if one thing this experience taught us is that this experience was the first real challenge to the federation that has been built over 38 years of hard work from our fathers, the ex-leaders, and the current leaders. And leadership rose up to the occasion and made it very clear, that all of our efforts over the past 38 years still stand, and we are one country. If you look at, of course, Dubai has been looked at times as an independent creature, but as Sheikh Khaled said, Dubai remains to be one of the 7 Emirates making up the United Arab Emirates. Our president remains to be His Highness Sheikh Khalifa. Our prime minister remains to be His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, who's also the ruler of Dubai. In the past, I think, in the past 6 months, this experience brought us a bit closer to our colleagues in the federal government, because even when you look at a country like the U.S., you don't see a California plan or an Arizona plan or a city plan like Seattle plan, you see a U.S. plan. You see a U.S. Treasury solution, and this is why, I mean, in the UAE context, I mean, when you look at some of the sectors, very important sectors in Dubai, they are being regulated by the federal government. If you look at banking, for example, we happen to have only one central bank in the UAE. So this forced us, which was a good outcome. This forced us to work closely with the federal government. When we launched the first, when we launched our $20 billion program, and we had plans to issue the first 10. The central bank, again, our colleagues were very supportive, and they subscribed to it fully, where we did not need to approach anyone else. And that's a sign of how close the local governments within the UAE and the federal government is.
Why don't we go here?
Hi, my name is Jawad. I do work for a Dubai Inc. company. I have two questions actually to the panel. Maybe Nasser is probably the right person to answer. How do you plan to equitize Dubai's balance sheet if the solutions that are being implemented and being talked about are, issuance of bonds and debt and probably rescheduling of existing corporate debts at the GRE levels? That's the first question. The second question is a reflection of investors' nervousness towards the next real test for Dubai in September, which is the maturity of the Nakheel bonds. Any insights you can give us as to what could be the outcome?
Unfortunately, I cannot speak on behalf of the GREs, but as I said, I mean, every single corporate in Dubai is re-examining its business model, is looking at its obligations, and I'm confident that they will address their issues in a very responsible manner.
Got one over here, maybe here.
I mean, if you look, I mean, sorry, I mean,
I think if you is it on? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's still work in progress. I mean, if we look at the total debt in Dubai, the last public figure that was announced is $80 billion, and that was back in November, before we launched the $20 billion program. 10 billion US was the sovereign debt, and $70 billion was the GRE's debt. And again, I mean, when you look at the GREs, this is something that they are in a better position to address. But as a sovereign, we still, we do not face challenges. If you look at the Dubai 09 budget, the government budget, public spending increased by 42%. It was a directive from His Highness that we have to fast track some of the infrastructure project, because we understood that FDI will not be flowing in the Emirate as it used to be because of the global climate. So we fast tracked some of the infrastructure projects, and we were courageous enough with the blessings of His Highness to announce the budget with the first ever deficit in the history of Dubai. And this is a sign of how serious the government is in supporting the economy.
How about over here? Now you've got it already. Go ahead.
I have run a study of the press coverage of Iceland, Ireland, Singapore, and Dubai over the last 6 months. And we know that economically, Dubai is in much better shape than all the other three. But actually, the negativity that it had received is the worst. How do you, explain this riddle? Thank you.
Maybe we need a media consultant to tell us.
Well, I'm not a media consultant. I'm a member of the media. I guess one observation I would make is that there's clearly, on the way up there was a huge amount of coverage of Dubai that focused on all that was amazing about it, all that was wonderful about it, and all that was terrific about it. And in many ways, that was equally uncritical and not a sort of in-depth reporting. So in some sense, I think you've gotten both ends of the cycle here. I do think one interesting thing will be, now that we've, I think, run both ends of that cycle, whether as we move on to a new phase, the coverage will begin to become more, is reasonable the right word? I'm not sure, but in a sense, take Dubai for what Dubai is more, and begin to focus on that and look at in a more practical sense. One thing I would ask is for both of you guys from Dubai is whether that clearly all this coverage on the way up was integral to Dubai's success. It got Dubai's attention. It drew tourists to Dubai. It really, how important as you go forward and try to work with the Dubai brand, do you see that as a challenge?
Can I take the
sure,
negative
Go,
media?
please.
I think Dubai is getting the best consulting for free from the media. I mean, in a crisis, you don't have a lot of funds to start with. So if you can get some criticism and consulting for free, that's good. So why don't we look at it from this way? I mean, some of it is true, some of it's not true. But I think we have enough wise people in Dubai to look at it and channel it in the right direction. So I think and this is coming not from one. Sorry for the consulting people here, but
we'll start
this is not coming
instead of consulting.
That's not coming from one consulting firm alone. This is people who have experienced Dubai, who came into Dubai, whether they like us or hate us, and they are telling us about issues that they have seen, which if we are wise enough, I think we should take all of that, find what's true, what's really the real issues, and convert them into positive instead of negative. So thank you for all the media that have criticized Dubai.
Should I get any more? Yeah,
He's the famous one.
Go ahead.
I don't want to get into the conspiracy theory and so on, but if of course, I mean, we do not agree with much of the coverage that we have been getting lately. If I look at some of the stories, the cars being dumped at Dubai airport, it started with a few hundred. All of a sudden, it reached 11,000 cars. And I remember calling His Highness Sheikh Ahmed bin Zayed, and who heads the airport, and asking him, "What's the capacity of the parking lot?" And it is less than that. Again, I mean, it's with some media, it's a matter of ignorance. But if it shows us one thing, it means that we have been successful in the past, and the world is interested in our story. By seeing that, I think we have achieved something, and it's up to us how to turn it in our favor. And to be honest with you, I mean, we are seeing more balanced coverage, because what more bad stories can they write? There's nothing left.
Well, and also I would say, as someone who's involved in covering Dubai, that once you've made the turn, and this is not just in Dubai, it's around the world. Once you've made the turn toward the kind of solutions to the problem, the kind of things going forward, there's much more to write about, to talk about, to do. When we were in that difficult period of trying to assess what was actually going on, where we were all going through, that's a difficult coverage period for those being covered, and I can assure you, for those doing the covering as well, trying to be responsible.
But to be frank with you, we're not letting it cause us to lose focus from what needs to be done. I think we have to continue doing what needs to be done, and I think the media will swing back in due course.
Go over here. How about here?
Thank you. Francis Matthew of Gulf News. I was interested in asking His Excellency Nasser a little more details about the bond the 10 billion, whether it's all been dispersed or when it will be dispersed, and whether any of it has been used to refinance existing GRE bonds, and will you need the next 10?
I mean, I've been talking to the media. I mean, over the past few days here in the Dead Sea. The last official statement that we made is more than half of the first tranche has been dispersed to the companies already. We have agreement with the companies that we will not disclose their names, what sums they have received, and we leave it up to them if they want to disclose this information. Since the last official disclosure of more than 5 billion, some other disbursements took place. On the second tranche, I mean, looking at assessing the requirements of the GREs and so on. On the second tranche, I think it will happen within this year in 2009.
How about over here? Got a section? Ooh, we have a section with no questions. How about right there?
Arif Sharif from Bloomberg News. The official figure that you gave out for your indebtedness was $80 billion. That's about nearly twice your GDP. Could you give us a sense of what is the level of indebtedness would be a good level that you might be aiming at over the next few years?
This is turning out to be a press briefing,
Well,
and I think I mean the figures that we have mentioned in the past are the last official figures that I'm at liberty to disclose. We'll update these figures shortly, inshallah.
We have time for probably one or two more. We've got them. There's one right behind you, actually.
Thank you very much. My name is Siba Audi. I'm from Al Arabiya News Channel. And it's not a question about media. The question really is, what is being done? It's all well and good to come sit here and say, we need to look again at our plans, we need to fine-tune and all that. It's all good, but we need to know what is actually being done. And there is no point in saying, we have to wait until it's all done before we talk about it. If Dubai is identifying itself as Dubai Inc., then it has a responsibility towards its stakeholders to inform them of what's happening while it's happening.
Right, yeah.
In the same way
Let's
that a
get onto a
corporation
question,
would.
though, if you've got it.
Pardon?
A question.
What is being done?
Well, I would say we have seen there is a plan, and but if you want to outline it a bit more, I think. Go ahead.
I think the question is a bit unfair. I mean, a lot has been done and a lot has been communicated. If we look at the Q4 last year, several moves. I mean, when it was when the matter was it was an issue of liquidity. The federal government moved in, pumped 120 billion dirhams in the banking system, guaranteed all deposits. I think we were the third country in the world to do that. Guaranteed the interbank to unlock the interbank lending. If we look at the steps that the government of Dubai has taken, of course, I mean we mentioned the $20 billion bond program a few times, and the intention of this is not to fund government activity. The intention of that is to support GREs who are creating jobs. When we increase the government spending by 42% and we ensure that our infrastructure projects are delivered on time, the metro will be operational on the 9th of September. That will create thousands of jobs. The Terminal 3 at Dubai Airport, if I look at the duty-free area, that created 1,000 jobs, more than 1,000 jobs. If you look at the terminal in totality, I mean, that created thousands of jobs. Companies are still doing what they have to do. Emirates just opened Dubai Mall. That created more than 10,000 jobs. So I think a lot has been done, but the media has to be fair to us to highlight the positives, and I'm sure there are shortcomings too.
Allow me just to come back just very quickly, if you don't mind. What's being done for when Dubai says it's reinventing itself? You couldn't find a fiercer supporter of Dubai. I live in Dubai myself. I'm a very fierce supporter, and I want to see it go to bigger and better and stronger all the time. However, Dubai has always been an innovator, and we all established this at the beginning of this session. So, being an innovator when the tide was up is good. Now, what are we doing to be? What are we doing about being an innovator when the tide is low now? And this is what we need to know.
Okay. I mean, we've talked some about that.
I think reinventing Dubai 2.0 and focusing probably less on the absolute growth, but on sustainable growth, which would be also creating a supply of services and quality services for the whole region, and going back to what Dubai has always been, the hub between the East and the West, and focus on all the activities that are around that. I think that's what Dubai 2.0 will be, and the innovation.
If I may say, I mean, you cannot reinvent yourself in one day. It takes time. You need to study, you need to learn, you need to also evaluate the circumstance. And we are in an evolving environment. It's not a standstill. This is not the status quo that we are maintaining in the past. There is so much changes happening and will continue to happen. So nobody can come up and say that this is what is Dubai 2.0 is. But if you want a hint, I can tell you that Dubai have built the hardware. Look at the software going forward.
How about right here?
Bill, just a quick comment to the people here. I'm also from Dubai. I don't think that Sheikh Khaled and Nasser are sitting in an ivory tower with their friends thinking about how do we reinvent 2.2, Dubai 2.2. There is a lot of interaction going on with the private sector. Some of it is public and some of it is quiet and on the scenes. But in terms of reinventing Dubai, what I wanted to say is that the private sector is very much involved, and the government is listening and cooperating and listening to our views. And if there was that much degree of cooperation in other countries and other cities between the public sector and the private sector, it would be really, the world would be a much better place, I can tell you.
Try over here. Yep, right over here. Oh, there we go. One more.
Thank you. I'm Christine Fabre. I live in Dubai. I'm also a fierce supporter of Dubai. Anybody in my close network who doesn't stop complaining about Dubai, I cannot help telling him, okay, so fine, when are you going back to your home country? So in line with this support, I've created many discussion threads on many social network websites. And the results of the feedback I had was that one of the most recurrent concern about the audience and the viewers was the fact that the demand for art and culture was bigger than the supply. And so it's also related to a very big concern which surprised me regarding art is censure. I can recognize here in the audience one of the founder of a great gallery in Dubai. Hello, Mr. Kassimi. So personally, I could not argue against these statements because I have attended many art exhibitions and cultural events which showed that Dubai was bold and daring, but it does remain a very big concern for the expat community. So I was wondering how are you going to address this bigger demand for art, and also maybe address and respond to this concern about censure?
Does anybody want to talk about, feel qualified to jump in on that one? Poor Nasser, can I make you qualified to answer every question about every possible area?
I'm not artistic.
That's all right.
Well,
we'll take
demand
it as a
for
statement,
culture and art is very big for, it's a big, it would be a retention criteria for the expat community in Dubai.
Important part.
Well,
if we not have quite the right people to answer
if we
that,
talk about retention in general, I think it's very important for us, as government, and we support the companies to continue creating jobs, and this is what I refer to. Over the past years, I think one of our huge successes was the talent that we have in Dubai today. Of course, we touched on companies taking necessary actions for them to remain, sustainable as business models, and it's unfortunate that some actions would include, some layoffs here and there. We are, when you look at retaining the talent that we have attracted to Dubai over the past years, this is one of the priorities. But when it comes to visa laws and so on, this is not a local government affair. This is a federal government affair. So, we have certain ideas that have been passed over to the federal government.
Either of you guys want to take a crack at sort of giving us a sense of summary here? I think we've taken a lot of heartfelt comments and questions, some of them difficult. So I thank you all for that. I think ultimately the conclusion is that there is still a lot of ways that Dubai can and will continue to be a model. And I suppose your comment probably sums it up best. If you thought it was interesting and useful, looking at the Dubai experience in the past, keep watching. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.